warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Being able to memorize Quran is always the dream for most Muslims in the world, and we are not the exception. But sometimes we find it really hard to memorize it since it's written in Arabic, which is not our daily language. In fact, in order to perform the most basic ritual of Salat, we have to memorize at least a few portions of the Quran. And besides, there are many benefits, both spiritual, emotional, and cognitive, to actively recite and memorize Quran. But remember this, memorizing Quran must be observed only for the sake of Allah and for winning His paradise, His pleasure, and His great rewards, not for people's sake, such as to show off or to be heard of. To memorize Quran, we need to start by learning a single ayah, then would continue to the entire surah and the whole Quran. As you can see on screen, today our lecture video is from Science 2, with my topic about how to memorize Quran, which I found it really helpful and already proven by me in my own memorizing Quran journey. And for the requirement we need to memorize Quran, of course the Holy Quran, and an audio guide, and of course the memory space. Okay, we move on to our first step. Grab your Holy Quran. This is the most important one, especially if you are a beginner for memorizing Quran, or you are about to memorize a new ayah, not murja'ah, then you need a real one, a real Quran, not a digital one from your phone or any other devices. Step number 2. Find a quiet place that's free from distraction for a 20-minute session. We have to avoid rooms with TV, computer screens, and we have to leave our phone in a different room after turning the sound off. Believe me, we're not going to be able to gain focus and memorize if we're sitting in a loud, crowded, and busy environment. Next, step number 3. Start by looking toward the end of the Quran. This is the step that we can use if we are firstly memorize Quran. If this is the very first Quran to memorize. Because the surah at the end tend to be shorter than the surah at the beginning. Step number 4. Obtain an audio guide. So, this would help us to get the proper teaching. We have to get an audio guide and then listen to it while reading it in our Quran. I'll give you an example. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Tabarakalladzi biyadihil mulku wa huwa ala kulli syai'in qadir. Alright, we move on to 5th step. Recite the entire single ayah out loud to get a sense for the rhythm. In this step, avoid splitting ayah into parts, unless for the ayah that are originally divided in a way or we call it waqaf. And then, in this step also, try not to use the audio. Don't use this audio. Step number 6. Repeat the ayah over and over again for 20 minutes until we really internalize it. So, it's actually depending on how good we are at memorizing. This could take us anywhere for 2 to 30 minutes until we really internalize it. And then the next step. This is the most challenging one, but also fun. So we have to look away from our mushaf, close our mushaf, and don't look at it. So we have to say it out loud. We have to say the ayah out loud from our memory. And why we get stuck? We can always refer back to our Quran. The next step, the 8th step. We have to revise the ayah in its entirety. If we think we've already memorized the ayah, we have to revise the ayah from the beginning up to the end of the ayah. so we can make sure that we might not forget it. Step number 9. This is actually the last step. Check your recitation against the audio guide. This is where this thing is used. After we think we've memorized it, say it out loud one more time from your memory without the Quran, and then play the audio. Play the audio and check whether you get the recitation correct. If you get the proper tajweed, the proper sound, and the proper pronunciation, you can move on to another ayah. That's all about the 9 steps to memorizing Quran. And besides, I have some tips that we can use in memorizing Quran. Tip number 1, set a schedule for yourself. Stick to it by practicing it every day. Normally, 20 minutes in a day is a reasonable amount of time to memorize Quran. Step number 2, learn and practice ayah over and over again in chronological order. After we memorize a new ayah, repeat from the entire page. We repeat from the entire page from the beginning up to the point we've just memorized. Tips number 3, practice reciting a surah back to a friend or a family member. All we have to do is have a friend or a family member to open the Quran to the surah we've memorized, and then say it out loud and have them stop us whenever we miss something. Tips number 4, recite the earlier surah we've memorized once every 7 days. Of course, we can always move on to other new surah after we memorize one surah. But remember, always go back to our surah that we've already memorized earlier once every 7 days to make sure they always stay fixed in our memory. Okay, so there are 4 tips that you can use. I think that's all about how memorizing Quran, and I hope it could be useful as well to you as it for me. I'm sorry if I have made many mistakes. Thank you for the attention and the time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.